This is Peak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Nick Sweeney. Nick goes by Based Ethos across social media and has a powerful story to share. I'm grateful we had the opportunity to connect, and I'm able to learn more about him and his story. He embraced faith over fear and cultivated the power within to heal. And it's an inspiring story. We touch upon some of the different strategies to activate natural healing systems like breath work, the power of sun and circadian rhythm, light, electromagnetism. Really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do as well. Appreciate you tuning in. If you are a new listener, welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. If you'd like to contribute to Peak Earth, I came up with a few ideas. One is to share an episode across social media. Could be LinkedIn, could be Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. Two, you could leave a 5-star review on the Apple app or the Spotify app. Those always give me great vibes. Three, you could start a small business. This could be as simple as selling baked goods on the street corner or mowing local lawns. And once you collect that cash, what you could do is purchase billboards or banners that planes fly at the beach, and those could promote this podcast. They could say Peak Earth Podcast. So I think that would be pretty cool. You don't have to do any of those things. Of course, really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Nick Sweeney. How are you?
Doing well.
Glad to hear it. Stoked to connect with you. Really enjoy what you are creating on the internet. It's unique and original, and that always draws my attention and admiration because I know that's difficult to do, challenging, and powerful. So thank you for what you're creating, and thank you for joining me to co-create this episode.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming. I've said this before, but I'll say it again, that you've been a serious inspiration for me. Totally emulated sort of your style because it's just real and raw and very based, getting into nature and giving people their power. And it's badass at the same time. So I'm really stoked that we got to connect.
Appreciate that. Thank you. What about that is resonating with you?
It just has a selfless feel to it. Like you're not doing it for any egoic reasons, really. Like you're trying to just give people value and give people inspiration and energy and motivation. And that's what I'm all about. And so sort of follows along the same train tracks that I'm in. And, you know, it's just always videos of you doing badass things on the beach and like under the sun and connecting with cool people, having good conversations. So that's what resonates with me more, is it's not so much based on supplements and that kind of stuff. It's just like you're a human being and you have a lot of power within you, and you might as well just like lean into that more than anything else.
Well said. That resonates with me as well. And I think that idea, that sort of belief set is definitely out there, that wavelength we can tap into and ride. And it really is a powerful way to be, where we just have, there's so much in the health space, especially a lot of nonsense around supplements and protocols and routines. And I've found that for me, the most powerful forces of nature to tap into are free.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. They're the most potent ones as well for healing and energy and that kind of thing. At least that's what I think.
And then within us, we've got this amazing power of authenticity, where we can just kind of be ourselves, and then affect people with that vibration where, whoa, this guy, what's this guy doing? He's different, but it's also not different in a weird way. It's like different and also uniquely you, and you embody that energy really well, where there's nobody else doing what you're doing or being the way that you're being, because it's an expression of your unique humanness.
No one else is shit posting as much as I am posting memes in that way. No, I would love to know more about like your approach to everything, your approach to authenticity, honestly, as you're creating.
It's a deep question, because my experience of going through the day is having this body mind that kind of serves up a lot of ideas and visions and ruminations and patterns of thought that can lead to different places. And it's difficult to sort of be in this body and just be served up all this stuff on a daily basis. And we get to kind of decide what we do and how we pursue a lot of these different visions and ideas. And a lot of it does come down to curation, where I'm sort of just saying, no, like, don't like this idea, don't like that vision. And then sometimes one will pop up that resonates in a really deep way. And I feel it less just in my head and more just full body sort of vibration or resonation. You just kind of feel it differently. And that's what I will choose to engage with, even if I think that maybe not a lot of people will like it. Like sometimes my inner critic or judge will say like, oh, that's only a few people are going to like that. But for whatever reason, it resonates with me. And that's what I'll decide to create. So I think that's the way it kind of feels for me. Is that similar to what you experienced?
Yeah, relatively similar, like becoming sensitive to the feeling of frequency and authenticity, becoming sensitive to like, oh, I'm having a creative stroke of genius right now, just let it flow, versus forcing things. And curating things is there's a lot of landmines you can step on if you're trying to like curate. Like my whole ethos behind how I create stuff is just shoot from the hip, whatever comes off the top of my head as the idea comes to me, like edit it a little bit, but like try to post it right away. And just, it came to you for a reason, like get it. And this is you being a conduit of like the universal provision or God or whatever you believe in. For me, it's God. And for me, it's like, if I am practicing what I preach, living authentically, living truth, living in my power, I'm going to become more open and more receptive and more sensitive to these interesting ideas. Like yesterday, I had a random, like it was super random, and I was sitting at a coffee shop. I had a whole schedule, a whole calendar of shit I had to do. And then I just had this idea, and I just started typing on Twitter, listening to the most like idiotic music. I couldn't even hear my music. It was like 2 hours, just dropped in, rode the wave, posted it, and now I'm like going viral on Twitter. And I was like, wow, like I just went no resistance to that. So like my thinking is, when you start getting wrapped up in survival mode, when you're survival mode, you are then separate from like the field. You're separate. You're no longer tapped in. And survival mode is that ego where you're like, well, I don't know what people are going to think about me if I post about semen retention. But for me, it's like, I don't give a singular fuck anymore. At some point I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a semen retention guy, but I don't give a fuck. And now I'm able to just ride that wave when it does come to me. So I would say it's like attraction and action with no resistance, and just what's your true expression. Yeah. So I don't know, that we could talk about that forever probably, but yeah.
That's a really well said, very poetic. I like that conversation around creativity. Creativity is absolutely fascinating to me because we're talking about it in the context of creating on the internet, sharing it out, and then you get this immediate feedback response, which is fascinating. You can do that in real life as well, in a conversation with someone, but it's different because the best you're going to get from someone in real life, I guess, is laughter, some like emotional response, and there's definitely a lot of ego gets so involved with that too, because we want to be perceived a certain way, and that happens on the internet as well. We a lot of us have these deep rooted desires and needs to be perceived a certain way, and getting out of that deeply rooted part of the human mind and into a higher state of being, or a deeper sense of self, like you mentioned, and embodying that God energy, or just letting it flow, because we get all these ideas coming in and then just kind of getting out of the way and letting it happen. That's got to be the essence of authenticity. And it's it's challenging to do, which is why we really celebrate artists, creators who are able to do that at a high level and impact culture with powerful art.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, is like fear, and I'm obsessed with fear in this way, and for performance and all of these different things. Like at the root cause of so much suffering is fear, and all fears at the derivative are the fear of death. And since we're tribal, when we post something, we're like, if we're not accepted for what we post, our lower states of being, our primal brains are going to interpret that as we're going to get cast out of the tribe and die in the woods alone because no one loves us and no one wants us to be part of our tribe because we just posted some schizo something on Twitter. And I am also I don't really believe in like being completely, totally fearless. I think that fear does like reside in the body and it has a purpose and it'll always be there. But like, you don't want to necessarily strive to be fearless. You just want to strive to be courageous. Meeting fear with courage and operating at a high frequency, high vibration. The higher frequency I operate at when I post a tweet, the more likely it is to do well. And the more courage I bring to that writing, to that creative process, the better it does. Like it's completely correlated as I see it for my own personal experience. If I'm like thinking about what people are going to think of me and scared about how it's going to be interpreted, it'll flop.
Sometimes when I'm creating or when I'm appreciating other people's creations or I'm consuming, and it almost seems like the emotion that was embodied during that state of creation is somehow imprinted within the final product. Because I sense this in a really visceral way with anger. Like when someone's angry when they write something, you can really kind of sense it. And the same is true for courage. If something is coming from the heart, I think the root word of courage, it comes from the French word core, which is for the heart. And when there's a lot of hard energy being blasted into a creation, you kind of sense that too, and fear as well. If something's fearful, you can kind of detect if it's a little bit stunted or not quite on point. But it's really interesting to tap into that aspect of it, because these emotional states, like you mentioned, the higher frequencies, we can cultivate and embody these states, and then wield that energy into what we create, like some sort of wizard.
Yeah, there's totally a resonance with writing or pieces of content or art. I believe they have scientifically, it's a scientific fact, they've scientifically measured that the intention becomes embossed, it becomes baked into what's created, or the product, or the piece of writing. And yeah, I can totally, if you stay on a tweet for a little longer and you sort of like read in past the words, you're like, you can feel the feeling almost that they were really feeling at that time. Or there's another little element, and I am 100% a believer in it. There's another little element where you can kind of tell. It's like, this kid is he's going through it right now. He's kind of like, I can tell he's just like struggling. Or sometimes, and then it's amazing when you see people and they're like killing it. And you can tell that they're just living in their power, living in their truth. The post is going viral and you're like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. And I've been on the full spectrum of that. I'm sure you have been as well. Like, it's a journey, and you try to post something motivational when you're feeling like a piece of shit, and it's going to come off and it's going to flop.
How did you come to this place where you are choosing to use your life force energy to be creative and to share your journey?
It's always been in the back of my mind that like I have a lot of information from experiences that would be helpful for other people. And in college, I was a ski racer. and I healed myself from this incurable injury that was supposed to end my career with breath work. And I healed it in 3 months when they said I wouldn't walk again without pain, and that my career was over and all this stuff. And after that, it was like, but prior to that, I was ski racing out of fear. I wanted approval from others. Also, it's like you have to get approval from like literal people, like college recruits, and then you got to get approval from your coach, and then you got to get approval from your peers. And it's like, you're in this egoic world of competitive athletics, and it just bred scarcity mindset for me, to the point where I just really didn't believe in myself, but I was still like training every day as hard as possible. Like, my actions would say that I'm on the verge of making the Olympics. My internal speak would say that I'm like a fucking loser. And it took me, that's changed a lot in the past couple of years. And now I've always been obsessed with improving yourself. Like, in the beginning, it was, I'm going to learn all about supplements because I need to give myself an edge so that I can beat the competition, because I don't believe in myself. So I need something more externally to perform better. So my whole career was me giving my power away. And then I got injured and I continued to give my power away for 10 months. And then the doctor was like, here's some painkillers, your career's over, blah, blah, blah. And that was when I turned to the breath and meditation in myself. And I reclaimed my power, really went deep within myself, and sort of untwisted a bunch of knots, rewrote a bunch of software, and came out the other end, was able to ski at Olympic trials, was able to captain the team, done ultramarathon. Like, now I'm just living in my truth, and I've realized, like, okay, as high performers, everyone suffers from this. Most every single high performer that I've coached and have seen have some sort of like chip on the shoulder, prove it energy. They're not embodying their power. They're not embodying their truth. And I believe our truth to be limitless, infinite potential. And when you create brain, heart coherence, mind, body coherence in the direction of your goals consistently in a skillful way, you can really achieve anything. You don't need a fucking supplement or a pill or a doctor or a protocol or a process. Like, you can take your power back. And I've seen people with gnarly diseases take their power back. I've seen people with injuries. And then I've also then there's like top of the pyramid performance aspect of it. So for me, like, I'm just obsessed with performance. I see everything through the lens of performance. And I went on Twitter and I saw a bunch of guys posting. I saw Soulbra, I saw all these guys. And I was like, I have all these thoughts in my head banging around every day anyways. And I don't have to, I can be anonymous because I was based raw for a year and not jeopardize my job outside of this, and just shitpost and just put myself out there and play this game. And it became a creative outlet. I was like, actually, I love writing. Wow. I hated writing in school. It sucked. Hated writing class. And then I was able to outlet expression in a really frictionless way. Like, I could be, literally like walking by a river and just crank a tweet out and then be done with it. And I'm like, wow, okay. I promised myself 1 tweet a day for a year. I haven't broken that streak except for when I have gone viral, because then I let it run on the algorithm a little longer. But that's just kind of my promise to myself. So to answer your question, like, what got me started was, I have a bunch of knowledge and gifts that I can give to the world, and I'm morally obligated, ethically, is my ethical, moral duty to help people, give them their power back. No one can give you your power other than yourself. But people can tell you, this is what I did. This is how I did it. And you can do it too. So Based is all about like getting people back into nature, but also getting people back into their own nature and their own truth. And that is a beautiful thing when people really dive in, don't give their power away to anything externally, and then come out the other side living in frequency, living their truth, suddenly abundance is flowing to them effortlessly. They just got on the pro team. They just landed a huge client. They just healed their injury that had plagued them their entire life. So it's really fulfilling for me to just witness it and be a part of it at some level. So it's all about positive impact for me at the end of the day. And this is just a way to put my word out there and positively impact people. So yeah.
Beautiful. And when you describe power, the power that we have, I perceive this as on some level, we all have the ability to co-create with God, with the time-space continuum, with reality, and that to me is the power. And if it's healing an injury, we have the power to do that. We have the power to shape and manipulate reality. Maybe it's generate large amounts of wealth. We can tap into our own generative capacity and make that happen. We all have this limitless ability, like you said, to shape reality to our will to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're not like fully unlimited. We're not gods, but we do have a really powerful ability, like for all intents and purposes, within the realm of your rational imagination, and maybe even outside of your wildest dreams. We can create and manipulate the
Mm-hmm.
time-space continuum in alignment with our heart, body, mind, and soul. And I'd like to maybe dip a bit back into the ski racing, because it is fascinating to me. And a lot of people maybe haven't skied before or are unfamiliar with ski racing at all. Would you mind describing what that experience is like?
Well, I did the lame version of ski racing, which was cross country skiing. So I was not ripping downhill, blitzing it, looking cool. I was in like a skinny little, basically see-through suit, in the cold, like running up hills, looking fucking goofy. But it was my entire life, and it looks goofy, but it's really raw. It's really like you're fucking. It's 10 degrees out. You have to earn every single inch on the course, and it was a great forcing mechanism to introduce me to who I am and who the fuck I am and what I'm about and how deep I can go into pain and into suffering willingly, voluntarily. It showed me, the levels of potential that I have, if I willingly choose to ascend from fear with courage and go that much harder up the hill or attack some guy on the downhill or whatever. Like, it was my whole life though. And it was, I got a month off every year ish. And then the rest was training, like just as every athlete. But, I'm training 3, 4, 5 hours a day all summer into the fall, and then racing all winter long. And it was raw. Like I was telling my brother last night, like I'm dealing with all of these like career obstacles and all of these like trivial, like they're trivial to me due to my ski racing career. I'm like, this is hard, but this is nowhere near as hard as a 50K in Canada. Like, it's a fucking cakewalk compared to that. Like, the feeling in my body before a 50K, before the race, is like, we're going to fucking war. I'm like shitting my brains out all morning long. I have to keep going to the bathroom. Like, I'm nervous as fuck. My body knows that it's about to get annihilated. And that was such a good teacher for me, to regulate my nervous system before, regulate my nervous system after. Cross country skiing, it's endurance, so it's like a lot of breathing. And for me, I learned how to breathe properly, within a race, within training, for different types of training. Like, it ultimately built me into who I am. And it was a beautiful thing. I got to captain the team. I got on the best ski team in the country. And I never achieved my Olympic dream, but I would say that I got something better. I like to say that I got something better because, I got injured, but I realized that I am my own medical establishment. I feel invincible within my own body, and that if anything happens, like, I can handle it. and I get to just live in that now versus like in some hotel in fucking Europe all winter long. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific. I'm happy to go into that, but that's sort of like the 1, 2, 3.
Where were you doing this? Because I know you're in Austin, Texas now. I don't think there's much cross country skiing down there.
No, thank God. Yeah, it's really hot. I ran this morning. I was like sweating at 7 a.m. I grew up in Colorado, and I was able to, I ski raced for the University of Denver. So I was ski racing all over Colorado growing up, and then Montana, Utah, New Mexico. I'm forgetting. Oh, Wyoming, of course, Wyoming. Don't go to Wyoming to ski, to cross country ski. It's very cold and very windy. It's like the Arctic tundra. But I got to go to Alaska, Sweden, Norway, Europe, New York. Like I got to go all over the world and all over the country. And I took a year off after high school and ski raced full time in Steamboat Springs for a team. And that got me to the next level where I got recruited to University of Denver. Has, I think, 27, 28, or 29 NCAA trophy titles, which is the most of any school by a lot. So it's kind of like the Alabama of skiing. However, there's only like 20, maybe there's 25 or so schools that ski. So it's not as competitive. But then you go to Europe and it's like football there. In Norway, it's like football. So it's crazy how competitive it is ultimately, and how fit you have to be. I mean, it's just a lot of like, in the summer you're eating breakfast, they say. So skiers are made in the summer. You're doing tons of low intensity volume training. So it'd be like up to 100-hour months of super low level volume mixed with strength, hour-long core sessions, then some sprinting plyometric stuff. And then in the fall, you eat lunch, you start cranking up the intensity, lowering the volume. So you have a base. Now you start building more on the foundation. And then fall, it's like you eat dinner. Lunch and dinner is the fall. And then in the winter, you're just eating dessert. Like you don't have to train too much. Like you train every day, but you're doing maybe 40-hour months, maybe 60-hour months. And the rest is just racing. So it's just nonstop. Like, okay, we got a 20K on Saturday and a 10K on Sunday or whatever it is. And it's like 2 to 3 races every single week for the entire winter. And that's when you're eating dessert and you're just like, the fitness is, if you weren't injured, if you didn't fuck up, if you trained correctly, the fitness is there and you get to just coast. You're recovering, you're absorbing each race each week. And it's fun. Like it can be really fun when you're in straight shape, like your fitness is lit, and you don't feel the hills and you can just move really fast. Like that's what I loved most. One of the things I loved most was those days that everything clicks. So many things can go wrong in a race, but when it does go right, it makes it that much sweeter.
Within that engagement, within that lifestyle, you mentioned competition as a primary part of that. It caught my attention because I was thinking about, I've never particularly been very competitive, and I noticed that some people definitely are very competitive. Do you see, like, what is a competitive spirit, and do you believe that it is helpful? Do you think it can be a hindrance? How does that play out in your life, and how has that changed over time?
Such a good question. Really. I am one of those guys that's competitive about literally everything. Like I'll try to like finish dinner faster than you or some bullshit. Like I've always been that way. And And I can't give you the answer ultimately. Like, it's helpful, super helpful, but it's also super destructive. And so like a lot of what I break people down with is and it's difficult when you're competing against people. There can only be one winner in a ski race. On Twitter, there can be millions of people that make a living, fulfill their dreams, fulfill their purpose. Let's say, so like business maybe isn't a zero-sum game all the time. Athletics, though, that's like competition. So for me, when I was young, like I got second in a race one time and I'm just fucking livid, like breaking my skis on a fence and just fucking pissed. And after that race, I trained lights out. I went crazy. And then I won the next race. And I was like, well, that worked. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep burning the candle. I'm going to keep burning coal ultimately. Like what I coach now is like there's coal and then there's nuclear. And coal can get you really far. And if you have a lot of coal, it's good to burn through it. But nuclear is actually where peak performance lies. That's where your absolute peak potential lies. So if you are training out of fear of losing, you will never reach your potential. Versus if you are training out of faith in yourself, you will. You stand to reach your potential. And so the competitive spirit, suddenly you turn the mirror from, you turn the light inwards versus like, that guy, I'm going to beat that guy, to this is me versus me. How deep can I go? How close to the sun can I fly? How close to God can I get through this vehicle of ultramarathon? Like, and I believe that when you're competing from faith in yourself, the game is way different, and you stand to win and you stand to surprise yourself. But at the same time, like a lot of great things have been built off of coal. A lot of great things have been built from people who are competitive with everyone else and wanting to win, wanting to be seen as better, they're living in the egoic mind though. Ultimately, they're wanting to be seen as someone of high status, someone who's powerful, someone who's smart, someone who's rich. At the end of the day, like men especially, we're super competitive because we're competing for resources. So there's this competition that's evolutionarily driven from the reptilian brain and the primal parts of the brain. And I think that it's still really powerful to tap into that. I know people that are like, butterflies, waterfalls, and rainbows, you don't have to tap into like that part. And I do think that you want to get to a point in your life where you can skillfully tap into it. It's like, okay, someone really pissed you off today at work, go into the gym and skillfully tap into coal and burn through it. But at the other end of that, you want to be a phoenix rising from the ashes, opening up into faith and belief in yourself and understanding that you are limitless, that you have the potential to do whatever it is that you want to do. So the competitive spirit's really fucking powerful, and it's driven by a really powerful part of our brain, and it can't be ignored. I think trying to suppress it is wrong, but I also think you need to be aware of it. You need to skillfully toggle between coal and nuclear, or whatever you want to call it, because yeah, if someone pisses you off and you're trying to win Olympic gold, and the day comes where you wake up in your bed and you do not want to go for a 3.5 hour run, but then you remember that guy, you're like, fuck yeah, okay, let's go. Versus the other one. So to say which one is more potent, I would say faith, I would say nuclear, I would say trust and belief in God and love in yourself, and you versus you competitive spirit. You versus you is the derivative. That's the most potent competition you'll ever have, because if you can compete against your highest self on a second by second basis, then you're really moving in the right direction. Versus, I almost think it's settling to be like, that guy, I'm going to beat that guy. But who the fuck is that guy? Who gives a fuck? Who is that guy? That guy is you. You're the real, demon slayer or enemy. And you got to discern. And then if you go you versus you and you become very aware of it, and that comes through presence, then I think that you're going to be moving in the right direction and you're going to achieve your dreams. You'll have a more likelihood of achieving everything you want.
Fascinating. And it is amazing because many struggle with motivation and are just embodying this state of listless, just, nihilism or, nothing matters. And there's no competition. There's really no nothing. It's just getting through the day is the competition. And I think for a lot of people like that, there may be deeper issues at play in terms of testosterone systems that may not be running properly, or just overall nutrient quality.
Microplastics.
There's getting out in the sunshine.
Microplastics in the balls.
Yeah. Microplastics in the balls. There's a long list of things, and maybe we could quickly cover that. But just to share an idea coming to mind about this conversation, the way I perceive a lot of these things in life, where we've got a dichotomy of like competition versus collaboration. And if I'm like being fully collaborative with everyone and I'm just doing my best to support you, not really competing at all, just being like, hey, I'm going to, support, I'm going to be the guy who's always giving the assist and helping people, to score the goal. And that can be a cool way to go. But there's also this middle point where a lion comes to mind. Like, I'm not sure if a lion is particularly competitive because he's just in his own power. He's just sitting in the middle of the Sahara, chilling out, waiting for his opportunity to arise. And then he's going to take down his meal and eat. There's really no competition for a lion in the jungle. But then you've got hyenas. Like, they strike me as being very competitive. There's a lot of them together. There's only so much meat for each particular hyena in the tribe, and there are different ways to embody these energies. And if you go too far in either direction, it becomes a dragon eating its own tail, and it becomes kind of destructive. And we do have this balanced state where we can be in presence and recognize now it's time to be competitive. Now it's time to be collaborative and sort of express the right energy at the right moment. And being rooted in presence is a powerful way to engage with that. I think a visual that comes to mind with a lot of these things is just like the yin yang symbol is such a powerful one. Whoever came up with that is just really transcendent genius, because it really kind of encapsulated a lot of life with that thing. And it's really an amazing approach. At least for me, I've always kind of been endeared by Eastern ways of thinking, and in practicing martial arts, I always found that when I was really competitive, I tended to be like overly exertive, and then it would open me up in different ways where I would be vulnerable. And I found when I dropped into this Zen state, which is known as Mushin in the Eastern style, which is the mind of no mind, I was able to find that I could just flow with my higher self and express my greatest performance. And there's certainly an aspect of both competitive and collaboration there. And it's interesting to embody sort of dual spirits. That it's a very Eastern way of perceiving, but it's been a powerful sort of perception in my life with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And did you see that the thing that they just released of the image of a proton? I believe it was a proton or an electron. It's the exact same shape as a yin yang. Two protons circling themselves, or two electrons or two neutrons, one of them, but they had like a heat map type image that they were able to take of, like, it's like the smallest thing they've ever been able to take a picture of or something, and it's the exact form of a yin yang, which is pretty cool. I'll send it to you after this.
I'll link it down below for people who want to see it as well. And it is amazing to think about life in terms of fractals too, not to get too hippie and esoteric, but I mean, that's why we're here, because it really is. So much in life is just, we've got these, fractals on fractals, and these repeating patterns and rhythms that are sort of timeless and classic. And I think just to make sure that I fulfill the open end that I left when it comes to holistic health practices, to become vital and able to tap into your full human foundational energy, what are some holistic health strategies that have had a big impact on your life? I know you mentioned breathwork as healing your knee. Maybe we can start there and then just go on to some other impactful routines, rituals, habits, protocols that you use every day.
Yeah. Maybe I'll save breathwork. Just, I believe that you got to have a foundation at the end of the day. And that foundation would look like, for me, there's priorities. The priority list is like, okay, sleep probably is top, restorative, healing, health. But then I would say it's like light diet, electron diet, water diet, movement, then nutrition. And that's not usually the order that people are in. But okay, get good sleep, great. Sunrise, sunset every single day, looking at the sunrise, looking at the sunset, learning how to sun gaze. Like the sun, like the body breaks the law of thermodynamics in that the amount of energy we get from food is not the amount of energy that we output. Well, where is all the energy coming from? It's coming from fucking light and electrons. And if you're able to have a lot of light coming in, like that light converts into energy purely. And it also doesn't have a parasitic load of digestion, let's say. It converts within the cell to energy. So we're not talking about the biology of health anymore. We're talking about the physics of health, which is really powerful and really an amazing thing in my eyes. And I threw my fucking sunglasses out when I learned this. I was sponsored by Oakley. I look at the sunrise and sunset every single day, stare into it for the first 30 degrees above the horizon. I stare into it. And then, the electron diet, like the three pillars, light, water, and electromagnetism. We're electromagnetic beings. You have an electromagnetic field that's like 1,000 times more powerful than your brain in your heart. Within every cell, there's an electron transport chain that makes all the cells work well. We're designed to be connected to Mother Earth. We're designed to be connected to the natural electromagnetic frequencies that are on Earth and within, the Earth's field even. So I am a huge believer, like we're swimming through a sea of electrons right now. Chances are if you're inside, you're breathing in a lot of positive electrons. Those equate to more inflammation in the body versus like if you're in a shower or if you are near a body of water, a waterfall, you're breathing in a ton of negative electrons, which is the same thing as grounding. So we're grounding 24/7. People just don't realize it. Like we're based by just breathing because you're breathing in electrons and those electrons equate into your cells in the same way that you would get from discharging positive electrons when you get based on the Mother Earth, grounded. So you want your electromagnetic body to be operating as it should by reconnecting to nature, simply. Light is huge. And then getting rid of blue light, blue light blocking glasses, red light at night, turning the lights off, all that kind of stuff is great. And then water, like we're 60+% water. So having really good water is really important. Structuring water is really, I'm really into structuring water, H3O2, all that kind of stuff, because water is, I think, a conductor of consciousness. It's a conductor of ideas. And that's, maybe, more esoteric philosophical belief, but I believe God is all around us. I believe divinity is all around us. Beauty is a straight line to the divine. And everywhere I look in nature, if you look at like the bark on a tree really closely, like, damn, it's so beautiful. And then you look at just anything and it's beautiful. And so like for me, it's just reconnecting to nature is the number one thing to get healthy again. If anyone's struggling, like move. You have to move, or you have to at least get a game plan to escape and go move to somewhere that has a positive environment. And if you can do that, then everything's going to be easier. I wouldn't even concern yourself as much like banging your head against the wall for nutrition as much. Like, cut out seed oils, do your best, try to shake your rancher's hand, like stop eating so much nonsense, obviously. But that's simple. And if people don't get that and people aren't open enough to realizing like maybe the government doesn't have your best interests in mind in terms of the food supply, then, can't help you. So that's what I would say about that. And then it all ties together for me with breath work, where I believe breath to be the razor's edge between the conscious and unconscious of our bodies and our minds. So we're unconsciously breathing right now. We're automatically breathing right now. But if you apply your consciousness to the breath, suddenly you are changing your body. And if you have two superpowers of your consciousness. You have attention and intention. Where do you put your attention? And then what is your intention with that attention? Energy flows where attention goes. And if you believe that to be fact, which it is scientific fact, then you're able to manipulate your body when in a conscious way and make the unconscious conscious. So if you have a cancerous cell, you can consciously manipulate your breath in certain ways to starve that cell and kill it and become healthy again. That's something that's just been proven. And so the breath is this tool. It's one of the few things you control in life. It's one of the few things you could tap into at any given moment, mostly. Like if you're on the bed in a hospital, you can still breathe. Maybe some people, it gets so bad that it can't, and that's really sad. And I believe that the medical system is backwards, and the incentives are all messed up and all this kind of stuff. And so that's why it's like, simplify it all, get back to nature, and learn how to use your breath, however that may be. You have your own authentic self-expression. Start expressing yourself with the breath. The breath is this thing that, a conscious, if you put your attention on your breath as you inhale, I believe it is the purest expression of willpower there is. And I believe that the exhale can be the purest expression of acceptance as well. So you can start saying a word on the inhale, saying a word on the exhale. You can start visualizing on the inhale, visualizing on the exhale. You can start manipulating your breath holding and ultimately your conscious attention. Like if I was to have you close your eyes here, I would have you like feel the left side of your brain only and focus on really feeling the left side only. And then feel your whole body all at once. The entire body all at once. Full body awareness. And then you go back to the left side. And then go back to the left side. And then switch your attention to the right side of the brain now. And feel the pressure in your temple change. Feel the energy really shift between the hemispheres. That power is always accessible to us. We can use it. You're literally sending energy to your brain when you're doing that. Because scientifically, energy flows where attention goes. So you can feel your whole brain all at once. Like what I have clients do then is like feel your whole brain all at once and then visualize it and then spiral it down into your heart and expand and feel your whole body all at once and then feel your brain again and then blah, blah, blah. But like if you have an injury in your arm, let's say you have a broken wrist or arm, like I did in the fall, I broke my wrist and my arm. And I started doing this attention type breath work again. I was able to heal my arm in 5 weeks when they said it would be 8 to 12. And most people end up having to get surgery and all this stuff. And I did light diet stuff, grounding, drank good water, ate good food, exercised, did a lot of meditation and a lot of breath work. And my body healed. Your body is designed to heal. So again, it's faith over fear. And it's, if you can bring light into your body, like with conscious awareness, just open awareness, that's going to dissolve fear. At the end of the day, yeah, we're humans, but animals, when they get traumatized, they shake the trauma and the fear out of their body. Native Americans, after they had some crazy battle and lost a bunch of wars, they would have ecstatic dances at night around the fire and get the trauma out of their body. But in the modern world, we just fucking integrate all this fear and trauma in the body, and we never liberate it from the muscles or from the body. The breath is a tool to do all of it. And there's so many levels. And I feel like I don't even know what I'm talking about because there are so many levels, so many rabbit holes to go down. And it really just makes me like, wow, there's infinite potential within the breath. And the more you practice it, the more you're consistent with it, the more you can bring conscious attention and intention to an injury or desired outcome or healing your brain or whatever it is. So that's number one thing, is get your power back through the breath. And it might take 10 years, but 10 years of you being really devoted to the breath and gaining your power back could give you 50, 60, 70, 80 years plus on the back end of living the life you want to live. So if you have patience and consistency and trust and faith, I really believe you can be your own medical establishment and perform how you want to as well. Peak performance lies in presence and in the breath as well.
Tremendous. That's a really powerful overview of a way to tap into body, mind, heart, and soul and integrate it within this matrix we call life or nature, and different from what is often presented by culture at large, especially here in America, where if you follow the mainstream advice, you're guaranteed to end up sick on some level, end up in the Western medical system where you will be prescribed pharmaceuticals. And a majority of Americans are doing exactly that. They're following exactly what mainstream culture is saying, and they're on some form of pharmaceutical as a remedy, which often just leads to side effects. And then they go back and get another prescription. And there are ways to get out of this. And I don't mean to be flippant about this. If you, someone listening, is currently on this path and seeking regeneration, remediation, healing, everything that Nick just described is a way to elevate our state and tap into healing forces of nature that elevate our vitality and allow our body mind to accelerate the healing process. We all have within us a constantly running regeneration cycle that is healing. You see that if you cut yourself and that heals up, in a certain amount of time for most people. And that happens on every level, no matter what it is, whether it's depression, whether it's a hurt ankle or a knee, like you experienced. All these things are rooted in inflammation to overgeneralize. And then that is quelled by things like you mentioned, the light, the electromagnetism, the movement, the breath. We could go on and on, but those principles that you outlined are absolutely powerful for everyone to tap into and leverage as allies on this journey.
Yeah, I will say this, that the world is always trying to tell you who you are. And your doctor is going to slap you with a label. Your boss is going to slap you with a label. People are going to tell you who you are. And you have to remember who you are, ultimately. You can't forget. You have to remind yourself, and that can be done. That has to be done, in my opinion, on a day-to-day basis, because the world is always trying to tell you who you are. The doctor is going to tell you that you have XYZ, and then you suddenly will identify with that disease, and that will then become you, and that is then a limitation. And we talked about limitations earlier, like, yeah, I'm not going to be a pro Olympic wrestler. That's not me. I can't do it. I'm skinny. Like, maybe if I spend my whole life dedicating it to, but that's just not me. So like, I gotta, pick and choose your battles a little bit. But when we're talking about health and we're talking about healing and recovery, the world is going to try to tell you who you are, and you do not want to forget that you are in a human body that is designed mechanistically to heal. That it was built to heal and adapt and overcome all of these things. And that power lies within you. don't get in your own way by letting someone tell you who you are, over identifying with a label, believing that you are that disease. You are not. You're something much greater. And so the breath is a great vehicle to remind you those types of things. Journaling, meditation, exercise, and just getting really clear and getting really, in your core, in your heart, what do you believe? And reminding yourself of that.
Powerful. And you mentioned coaching that you're doing and clients that you're working with. Could you share a bit about what you are doing there, the service that you're providing, and how folks can find you?
Yeah, so I have a couple different programs. Breathwork is applicable to a lot of different things. So I have pro athletes that come to me either with their injuries or they want peak performance. And I have my program's called Polaris, predicated on finding your North Star in your life, finding your mission, and at least getting a general direction in which to move forward so that you can always be competitive with yourself. What's my highest self doing? Is this direction in alignment or not? So for pro athletes, sometimes it's like, well, my North Star is getting to the Olympics next year. I'm like, okay, great. We will create a curriculum around that then, versus someone who comes to me and is like, well, I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to build a business, or I'm trying to overcome an injury. All of it is, it's called Polaris. And I have a book that I wrote when I was injured. When the doctor said my career was over, I wrote this Google Doc that it lays out like, who is Nick Sweeney? What does he believe? What does he want someone to say about him at his funeral? What is his value hierarchy? What are his principles? What is his North Star in life? Why does he do anything at all? And I wrote it down, and it's changed over 5 years, but with 5 years of it being written down, it's ingrained itself in my subconscious. And now I'm able to wake up and I don't have to deal with discipline in my life anymore. I only operate in the realm of devotion to my Polaris, devotion to my mission, to my cause, and to God. If you can, and a lot of my coaching turns from breath work into life coaching real quick, because I'm concerned with the root causes only. What are the root causes hindering your performance or your healing or your revenue? So I would like to, if you say you're good at everything or you do everything, you're known for nothing. I would say that the commonality across all of the things that I do coaching is nervous system regulation. And that's going to be different for everyone. But whether you have a animal in your scope when you're hunting, or you're about to run in the Olympics, or you're trying to heal from an injury, nervous system regulation is a key heartstone component of that. So it's nervous system regulation at the heart of it, faith over fear mindset, and then it changes from there. So it's been a really powerful and amazing journey for me. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Based Ethos. And that's where you can just DM me, and I offer free calls for people. Like, I really believe that the only reason that I have a following is because I come at this from a service oriented perspective, where it's like, I'm trying to help people. So I'm happy to help anyone that's in a position of healing or wanting to reach their potential. So
beautiful. Well, I will include links to everything you just mentioned down below for folks, and really appreciate you finding your North Star, creating with courage, and engaging with the healing process and learning this deep stuff that is somewhat esoteric, but coming to the forefront. And you've been a big part of that. And I'm sure you will continue to be a bigger and bigger part of that as you embody these principles and continue to do your thing. And really grateful for you taking the time to connect with me and have this conversation. I really enjoyed it thoroughly, and it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, when I get to California, we'll have to link up and do some beach workouts.
Absolutely. Nick Sweeney, thank you.